this computer. We are recording. It is session 6 of 11. It is Wednesday, 28 March 2018. We are in the midst of the Storytelling Therapy course, Spring 2018 edition. And now we're going to hear a life story. Because the microphone and stage is yours.
Thank you. Good evening all. Sorry I couldn't be there the last time. My story is called Daruma. And the story is about this little boy born on the 11th of December 1976 and born to a family where the mother is a Muslim, the dad is a Hindu, and has an older brother with a wonderful life till the age of 13, where everything's going well. And one fine day, his dad is in coma, and he's in coma for 6 months. And that's one person that he loves the most in his life, besides his mother and his stepmother, who's a Catholic. And so 6 months go away, and one fine day on the 14th of January, which is a kite flying festival in Mumbai, he loses his father. And the irony is that because it's an auspicious day in Indian festival, he is trying to find a Pandit who is going to and willing to be able to do the final rites. But all Pandits refuse to do the rites because they don't do cremation, they only do puja, which is the positive aspect of looking at God. And I think that's what makes the boy question this entire thing of religion, himself having born and brought up under 3 religions, which is Islam, Christianity, and Hinduism. This boy then decides to go on a quest for soul searching because he does not want to get carried away with other things in life. So his friend is in Nepal, and she calls him over, and he stays in a monastery for 2.5 months, and he's about to become 14. And I think one of the things he learns in the monastery when he comes back to India is that there is beauty in confusion, and not necessarily always in clarity, because when you're confused, you start to ask questions that you seek answers for. But when you're clear, you stop searching. And when you stop searching, you stop asking. And when you stop asking, you stop learning. And when you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you start rusting, like that nail which is on the wall, which has no purpose. And I think that's when he decides that he wants to give back to the society. And he gets into hotel management. He gets into corporates, he gets into theater, he gets into acting, he gets into training. And this goes on, and he works with some of the best consulting companies in the world. But he's not happy still because he's achieved, but he still has to look up to his boss for everything. And he does not want to be in boxes. So one fine day, he's listening to this song by Melina Reynolds called Little Boxes, which talks about how everything is in boxes and how your coffins are also so identical in boxes, and the houses you stay are boxes, and so on and so forth. And he does not want to be one of those boxes. So he starts his own company called Dantotsu, which comes from the inspiration of Dantotsu comes from a warrior prince called Daruma, who meditates for 9 years but doesn't give up. And when he finishes his meditation, his limbs are eaten away and one eye is eaten away. But the Japanese are inspired by what he has done, and they call him the warrior prince. And I think Vikas relates to that warrior prince, and therefore he relates to the metaphor of Daruma. So that's the story of Vikas. And today Vikas stays with his son Advait, and he is an entrepreneur for the last 8 years, and he has 6 pets, 2 dogs, 2 tortoise and 2 guinea pigs. And he wants to open an institute that is completely dedicated to the development of the youth, to help them get jobs. And that's his larger purpose and larger goal. And he's a successful entrepreneur, but he wants to create his niche, and he wants to do really, really good, ethical, quality work, which is longer lasting and more purposeful than his own identity. And I think that's what Vikas wants to do, and that's the story of Vikas. And I think a little bit of me is what I give to anybody that I meet, and a little bit of others is what I take from them when I meet them. And that's what makes me today. And yeah, I think that's the story of my life, the Daruma. Thank you all.
Wonderful. Okay, so one turning point was going to the monastery. That seemed to help the character integrate all of his thoughts and experiences, and the understanding of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
What was that metaphor you mentioned about a nail on the wall that has no purpose?
I think I did not. So there was this. I was asked to remove in the monastery. There was one of the tasks that I was asked to do is to paint the walls,
Mm-hmm.
and the walls had a lot of nails that were not being used, but removing them was more difficult than painting the walls. And I think it just stayed with me to remind me of not being that nail, which is of no purpose to anyone, and which takes so much longer to heal. And I didn't want to be that nail. So I think that's just stayed with me for very long.
Those nails were obstructions.
Obstructions, yes.
Mm-hmm. So what did you find they did? Did you pull some out, or did you hammer them in, or did you do both?
No, the idea was to pull them out and fill those holes and paint the walls so that they can be used for other purposes and are also safe.
Mm-hmm. And
because a rusted nail, yes, with the help, of course, of some stronger people.
Mm-hmm. And then one other major metaphor in there was the boxes, that the character did not want to be constrained in a box.
Yes.
And I get the feeling that the training and guidance that the character wants to give to young people is to also help them avoid being boxed in too much.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's trying to help them get jobs. So that's a kind of those two things have to be balanced, right? Sometimes when we get a job, we get boxed in by it, and we need to make a living and help support ourselves and others. But I guess the ideal is if we can do it without feeling boxed in.
Yes. And I think the more I'm doing training with corporates, the more I'm seeing a few of these guys in corporates who are doing their job and yet not being boxed. So they're able to find creativity in their job, they're able to find passion in their job, and they're able to find meaning in their job, however mundane or however boring it may be. So I think the idea is not to choose between the two, but the idea is to blend the two and make meaning out of it.
I'm sorry to hear about your father and that you lost him when you were young. But
yes, I was 13.
That's a very, crucial age. I mentioned last week that I was about that age when I lost my sister, and it also had an impact. But it was a very interesting and evocative and beautiful idea that. Did you say he went into a coma or he passed away on Kite Day? Was it?
Yes.
Did he pass?
He went into a coma for 6 months, and he passed away on the Kite Day, which is 14th of January.
So, so a kite, I guess, flying kites can be a metaphor for the spirit going up.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful metaphor because, we can see the kite, the beautiful kite up in the sky, and the tail of the kite fluttering, and it's beautiful. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Any thoughts about metaphors or turning points or any other aspect of the story? Go ahead.
Yeah. So when you said about the Kite Day and your father passing away on the same day, I remembered a story that I had read a long time ago. It's called The Kite Flyer. I think it's a Japanese tale. I mean, it is not a folktale or anything, but it is a tale which a father-son duo, they had actually made it together when the father was to explain to the son about death. It's a very beautiful tale. I would find the link and share it with you all. Because probably you would connect with it very well is what I feel.
Wow.
So that's something I wanted to tell. It just came to my mind when you said that. So that was the story that popped inside my head. I was told about that by a friend. I heard it when a friend had first told that story. And it is a very beautiful thing which I think everybody can relate to, especially when it comes about losing someone or about accepting death in a very nicer way. I think it's a wonderful story. I would definitely share the link with you all, probably in the groups.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And a very inspiring story, Vikas. I'm touched. Very beautiful story indeed. Very nice.
Vika, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Smita.
First of all, yeah, it was very well told, very well narrated. I really liked it. I'm going to remember these lines that you told about confusion and clarity. It's going to stay with me. It was beautiful. That's number one. Number two, there was a kind of pathos in the religion aspect, is what I feel. So, but if I may say so, after that, you sort of touched upon it, some sort of it did make a difference. I wouldn't say it's a turning point. I might not know, but it made some sort of a difference. After that, was there a change in your thought process about acceptance? Was there a change in the way you looked at culture and religion, because you are a part of a lot of cultures? So that was one thing which I think as I would want to know to understand it better. But other than that, wow, what a journey, really. I liked it. It's going to stay with me, Vikas, for sure.
Thank you.
I can say something?
Go ahead.
The moments when you say that you understand that in the chaos can be also beautiful. You said something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you said something like that, right?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah, that reminds me of the myth of Prométhée and Epiméthée. Okay, I don't know the name in English. The Greeks, and they are two brothers. Prometheus, I don't know, is known for having stolen the fire from the gods. But it's interesting I think of something else. Interesting because they are two brothers and they represent something opposite. And the Epimete is sorry.
They represent something opposite of each other.
Yeah, and Prométhée is in the chaos. So Epimete, he likes to have things clear and well organized, and he kept the past. He keeps the past things, and Prométhée, he's preparing the future in the dark.
Okay.
He's working in the dark. He's a blacksmith. He's in the chaos, and it's him, Prométhée, that in the chaos is constructing something.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
No, it reminds me that Prométhée.
Oh, lovely. Could you write that down and send it to us? Prométhée and Comete. Could you spell that? Yeah.
So, sure.
Prometheus, I think many of us are familiar with Prometheus, that he stole fire and then he was punished. He was chained to a rock. But I had never heard of his brother before. So we'll learn about that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
I think it would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice if after, we kind of have some place where we put on all these titles, and then it's going to be useful for us later. Maybe I'll start doing it from this session, but the previous sessions, if anybody has links of any stories being said, maybe just put it out on the email in the group. It's going to help all of us.
Yeah, why don't you get the list started? These are stories that somehow are related to the stories that we've heard. Get it started and send it to the group, and then I'll make a web page for it.
I'll do that. I'll get it started right. But then I have bad memory about the previous session, but I can always see the YouTube. Let me see how I do that.
Mm-hmm. Regarding what somebody was asking or saying about the religions, I think we're all kind of born into situations where maybe our parents believe a certain ideology or philosophy or religion or our community, but then we go through the experience of life with its shocks, and then each one of us has to figure things out for ourselves and see how much those ideologies and philosophies and religions how much they really make sense on the ground in our experience. So because didn't talk about that so much, maybe that's that's a different chapter of the story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sid, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's a wonderful story that you narrated about yourself. To me, it is always about resilience. To me, it is always about how beautifully you actually have come to terms with life and the way you're making changes to your life. Couple of things that definitely stayed with me is finding. I just wrote it down. I always get beauty in confusion. And the way you put that across, that really hit the nail in the head.
I agree.
So it was a beautiful one that you said, and when I reflect, it does connect with me a lot. And whether it's a corporate life, whether it's personal life, there is confusion, and there is a beauty in that. And those are small things that actually lighten up life beautifully. Yeah. About religion, yes, and I like the same breath that you said. You have 3 religions that you were brought up with, and then you started questioning what religion is to you. The last word, of course, is mine, questioning the religion part. But yes, the way you put that across is what is it doing to you, and that was really strong and powerful connection that you brought up. The last piece that you said, whenever you meet somebody, you want to give something of you and get something of others. And the way you narrated your small family of 3 of you plus 7.
Yeah.
That says, to me, it did talk about how open you are towards life, towards other things around in life, and the way you connected. So it was very powerful way of connecting both for me. Wow. And the beauty, just to end it all, is that well, it's nice to hear somebody to be born in December.
Okay.
Just a 7 days difference.
Oh, okay. Before or after?
After, the same year though, 76.
Oh, okay. Okay, lovely. Thank you, Sid.
And regarding the element of the story of, searching for meaning and balance in one's own life, and then helping others find that balance also, or wanting to help others, I think that is a classic pattern in the lives of most people who go into any sort of healing profession. Because we recognize a need to heal and integrate ourselves, and then we think, now that I have some expertise in this, maybe I should help others do it also. So that, I guess it almost goes without saying that people involved in healing and teaching need the healing and teaching themselves, and somehow get it, or are on the road to it, and that inspires them to help others find that road also. Okay, good. Go ahead. Yes.
Something. Yeah, I was thinking archetype. He's not an explorer like three of us are. Mm-hmm. He's a teacher. I have no name for that. Is it a sage? But you had so many lessons that you shared through your story. So many. And I think we've all appreciated every single one of them. We all resonated with them. We all know that there are lessons there to learn. And the one about, we all like the one about learning more from chaos than from having things organised. And I love the images that people make of life as a series of ups and downs, hopefully all reaching the top at the end or somewhere higher. And each one has to happen, much as we'd like our lives. And I'm trying to make a diagonal straight up across the, they go in and out and round about. And each one of those, they say before the break, after the breakdown comes the breakthrough. Yeah. So you incorporated that. But I am just amazed at that turning point. No matter, every time I think about it, there's another layer to it. It's incredibly powerful. My goodness. Your father in a coma and then dying on Kite Day, and that whole scenario, that whole relationship, that whole imagery of the kites, and then it twists again to being Kite Day has its, instead of being spiritual and beautiful and a representative of your father and your relationship, it becomes this venal block to you wanting to have a symbolic passing for your dad. And that's massive on so many levels. Thank you. I'm really enjoying that and how it worked. And I'll probably be waking up at 3 tomorrow morning going, oh yes, but there's also that other bit. So thank you for that. And I can see that you are at a stage in your life now where you're starting to achieve the things that you thought needed to be achieved. But I suspect there's going to be another twist shortly. So, thank you, Vikas. I really enjoyed it. Oh, can I say, so many of you are incorporating a mythical figure as one of your motivators. Eric, last time talked about wanting to walk in the steps of the person. You used your rumor as a guide. This is not part of my history. And a lot of you are already doing this stuff for yourself, aren't you? You're using fairy tales and myths for yourself, healing yourself and using them as guides for your story. And I'm loving my little spot here in the midst of you all. It's such a rich heritage that you're bringing to me, and I really appreciate it, particularly yours, Vikas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
that is sometimes called mythical thinking. And Joseph Campbell especially encouraged us to do that sort of thing. And his students have led workshops around the world on mythical thinking, mythical living.
Thank you.
Vikas, can you say a word or two about why you chose to tell it in third person and how it felt to tell it in third person?
I think I was able to disassociate some of the feelings in some of the patches. And I think each time that I talk in third person, I'm able to have clearer images of those experiences and not emotionally colored images of those experiences. So I always feel comfortable talking about myself more in third person. In fact, many times when I'm doing training programs, I introduce myself also in third person.
So that distancing and externalization can help with clarity.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I think because you just gave me a point, a learning here, I should definitely try that. I have a pattern of choking and stopping when I do it in my first person. I should definitely try that out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, a last thought about Kite Day. I came across the story of Milarepa years ago, a Tibetan follower of the Buddha. And when Milarepa passed away, there was a beautiful description in this book of all the kites in the sky and ribbons and banners and all sorts of, Buddhist type angels and objects in the sky as part of the celebration of Milarepa entering nirvana. I think it's sort of part of Buddhism, at least, to imagine or perceive beautiful things in the sky as people attain nirvana.
Yeah.
All right, good. So, shall we take a look at the Jung material?
Yes.
Good. I'm going to go to share screen, and let's see if we can do this in a way that the the words are big enough for us to read them. Okay, so first I'm going to choose share screen. Then I'm going to choose desktop. Okay. Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Is this readable?
Yes.
Okay, this I've sent you the link to this. This is written by, I guess he's a Jungian analyst in New York. And New York has a big Jungian center, which I think this writer is involved with. Let's see. It's a depth psychology involving psychology of the unconscious. The interpretation of dreams, said Freud, is the royal road to the knowledge of the unconscious. So that sentence actually uses royalty, not in the sense of kings and queens, but in the sense of, the king and queen is the, I think I've mentioned, we can see kings and queens and princes and princesses as symbolizing, representing self-control, self-possession, that we're not boxed in by anyone else, that we control our own destiny. And probably that's the way Freud was using the word royal there. But let's see. So he's comparing Freud to Jung. This is a very, very big and complicated field. Can you see that when I highlight things? Is some of the letters getting blue?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The 3 Jungian methods. I've mentioned these before, and these 3 are 3 of the 7 that I've identified for storytelling therapy. Explication is just thinking about the stories, analyzing them, thinking about what the outstanding themes, the outstanding images. So it's an analytical process. Then amplification is the term for gathering 4 or 5 or 6 other stories and comparing those other stories to aspects of your own story. I would call that association, but it seems Jung called it amplification, although, you know, Jung wrote in Swiss or German, so I'm not sure exactly how those words are translated, but amplification implies we're making it louder. So perhaps it implies that by comparing your own life to Prometheus or some other mythological character, you make your life bigger. Probably bigger is not really what it's all about. It's about connecting to these archetypes and realizing that one is a part, one is related to these larger stories. And then active imagination is this thing of talking to and as characters. And, oh, Sid, did you want to say something?
Yes, just wanted to ask, when we look at comparing other stories, what's the objective that we are trying to achieve in this whole process?
Well, Jung is calling it amplification, that we are somehow, I guess, making our story bigger. But another way to think of it is that we are connecting our story to these archetypal stories. We are finding that other characters, other people have experienced something similar. So it's no longer just a personal, individual story. It's suddenly a cultural and group story. So one point of it is to see that other characters in our culture have gone through similar things, and we can learn, you know, how they handled it. Does anyone have any other ideas about what's the point of comparing one's own experience with other stories?
I agree to what you said, Eric, because I think it just gives you the feel of I'm not alone, and this has been experienced by somebody already. And the very fact that there was a solution to it might also lead you to a solution is what I think. So that's what comes out to me. So I completely agree with what you said, yes.
And then you start thinking in terms of there are variations. You know, one character, because there are always differences in the different stories. So then you see there are variations on a theme. So then you think about the basic theme involved. Of, for example, one theme with the story we just heard was going through a period of suffering and a period of attempting to integrate things and heal oneself, and then being interested to help others in a similar way. That is a theme. That is a story. And we can find many variations on that story. You know, people who did it slightly differently. So it helps put one in context. It helps put your own self in the context of your society, of your of humanity. So you see a larger picture. Okay, does that begin to give some answers, Sid?
It does. I'm just correlating it in terms of, so fine, I might feel that yes, it is, there are other stories. I'm not alone. There is a possibility of a solution, and there's a different viewpoint to look at it. These are the 4 things that I could pick up. from what I understood of the discussion right now. I'm just trying to connect it back with, so is it as a process of simplifying my story or my pain area, and trying to figure out something which will help me in the long run? How does it, what perspective does it throw up then?
Well, make a note of these questions and keep them in mind as you gather stories for yourself. See how that affects you, see if it's useful to you. And as you work with a client and help them gather stories, see if it helps them. See what happens along the way. Okay?
Okay.
So these first two steps, the explication, which I would call analyzing, and application, which I would call associating, these are really intellectual procedures. But then the third one, the active imagination, the imagining one is a character and speaking as that character, that's no longer an intellectual process. That is a playful, pretending, acting process. So that's where additional memories and emotions might come up.
Yeah. I want to share something, Eric.
There is a little bit of kind of a whoosh sound. So I do suggest if you're not speaking, do mute yourself. All right? A lot of people already are. But yeah, now the whoosh sound has gone away. So the person who just muted themselves, your system was producing, Bronwyn. Okay. Did somebody want to add something, Vikas, or did somebody want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to add two things. Yeah. So one is, I think the process of amplification, taking the cue from Sid, the importance is also that when you're doing active imagination, amplification helps you to boil down to the key character that you want to actually actively imagine. So I think amplification therefore helps you to filter a lot of other characters and what's the real character you want to magnify in active imagination. That's one. And number two, I also feel that there is a fourth step probably in between amplification and active imagination, which is re-explification. So when you amplify and then you go back to your story and see, do you want to rewrite it or have you objectively written it, or do you want to mellow it down or tune it up or whatever?
Yes.
And then when you actively imagine it, I think it makes more, it makes it more impactful is my thought.
Yes, that extra step is added in the 7 steps that I've written out. That extra step is there.
Oh, okay.
That step of playing, imagining, reformulating things, changing it from first person to third person, adding characters, changing the endings. All of those kind of adjustments are it's a good idea to do those. No reason we should be tied down to any particular reality. Okay, so now he has more about each one. Let's see what he says about this amplification process. Oh, he's talking also about amplifying images, comparing them to similar images. He would amplify a key, a stick, in a dream by comparing it to similar objects in myths, fairy tales, and folk tales. It's a comparative method that identifies parallels. Amplification establishes what is typical or archetypal about an image or a character. So then we can start talking and thinking about the collective unconscious. So all of this makes it more of a public group cultural situation, not just an individual situation. And there's a long discussion of that folktale Bluebeard. Let's skip through that.
Except that, can I just have a minor rant here? I didn't like his interpretation of it, which was the start of, that women shouldn't be curious and that, you can't hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
said that her brothers came and saved her from this terrible man that had murdered all his wives. What does that say about the role of men and women, that women can only exist by not being curious and by having men look after them? Which was one way I looked at it. I had very different interpretation of what those characters were saying about men and women and their relationships. But leaving that aside, well, I mean, a great source of discussion would be how one person interprets a story like that. And that would be the basis for a long way to go. But the other thing is, being a historian, perhaps you can see it's so much based in its own time and indicative of what was going on then. So I guess that's the answer to my disgust.
Yeah, for
but
those
I love
who don't,
the idea that we can interpret stories, and that interpretation can move towards some sort of growth and healing.
For those who don't know that story, it's about a new bride who her husband tells her not to look in a particular room, and then he goes away, and of course she looks in that room, and she finds the bodies and bones of many other women who've been murdered, and it's implied that her husband has murdered these other women. So I'm not sure that the writer of this article gets the point that the point of the story is that women should not investigate. Maybe he said something in there that implies that, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure he says that, and certainly the story itself is ambiguous, because on the one hand, if only she would have followed his instructions, they might have lived happily ever after. But what happens? She looks at it, she finds out, and then he wants to kill her, and she either has to run away or something. So the story really is about exploration of self and exploration of those close to us, and it does communicate the idea that when you do explore, especially forbidden places, you might find something really ugly. So you have to be ready to run or defend yourself or handle the situation after you do this exploration. That's what I get out of it. That when you do the exploration, you need a safety net, or you need an escape route, or you need something because somebody?
Sorry, yes, and you need somebody because her brother rescued her. So means maybe when you go deep, you must keep the link with the others.
Yeah, you should not do it totally alone. If possible, you should have an ally of some sort.
Yeah, because her brother comes rescuing her.
Good. So yeah, so you see, every story has an inner kind of basic story that if you get to it, you can apply it to your own experience. So the art of analyzing stories is to get to the heart of that story in such a way that you can get to something that you can also relate to and apply to your own life and your own experience. And you're never sure if there's always more than one meaning, but all we can do is get to the meaning that we relate to. Okay, and then active imagination. Here he ends it with, Jung discovered there are things in the psyche which I do not produce, but which produce themselves, and they have their own life. And there is something in me which can say things that I do not know and do not intend. This discovery was what he eventually called the autonomy of the unconscious. And this really was what my essay was all about too. Was about Jung's approach, which is inspiring the field of storytelling therapy to a large extent, is all about how we have all these different voices inside us. And the discovery and development or therapeutic process is all about discovering these voices, welcoming them, seeking them out, summoning them, requesting them to come up and come to the light of day so that we can understand them and that we can, integrate them. But when they do come up, this is the exploration process. When they do come up, some of them might be very angry, some of them might be very depressed. We don't know. We don't know what's going to come up. So it is a bit of a risky process. But the idea is that the human personality is not one thing. The human personality is a conglomeration of many aspects, and I guess it's our conscious self that has the job of integrating everything.
Mm. Okay, Rick, I have a question here.
Yes.
Sorry. So in your article, you had mentioned something about an inner break. So it would be, I would like to know more about that.
Let me see, I will just for a moment open that one. Okay, let me make it bigger.
Did you say inner break?
Inner break.
Did I really use that term, an inner break? Let's see.
Yes, that's
this is too small. Here, just a second. Let me try to make it bigger. I might have used the word psychotic break. Let's see. Okay, is that readable, the size?
Yes.
Is it, Christelle, it's not for you, but you're on a phone. I think people who are on phones won't be able to read these things very well. Let me make it a little bigger still. Okay, let's go with this. Let me search for the word break. Breaking a spell. Now, the only time I use this word break in here is at the end when I talk about breaking a spell, which can be a symbolic way of having some sort of breakthrough, of realizing something or breaking a habit of some sort or something. But in what context did I mention break? Do you remember?
But I think
maybe it's break with the A.
There was a line which said that to analyze when you get into active imagination, it's always better to get somebody's help, as in a third person, a therapist's help or something.
Mm-hmm.
See, I just see that inner break. An inner break is built into...
Yeah, it's B-R-A-K-E.
Yeah, it's B-R-A-K-E.
Yes.
Yeah, with A.
Yes, now I remember.
Yes.
And I was really quoting, an inner break is built into the experience of any instinct. So that is saying that when these feelings or urges or inclinations come up from inside us, we know that we should not act on them. If it's like telling us to kill somebody or kill ourselves, we know that we have to apply the brakes. That's a metaphor like a car, right? If something's going too fast or has too much momentum, we have to apply the brakes. One benefits by acknowledging and integrating the various aspects of oneself. To sublimate the emotions is to acknowledge them and then work out compromises. And, in some cases, if there is an aspect of oneself that is, for example, just so furious, what one can do is imagine, okay, I think you need to live in a wilderness, Maybe you can live in a would you like to live in a zoo? Oh, no, you don't want to live in a zoo? Okay, live in the wild. Live in the forest. Live in the jungle. And if I can help you in any way, you probably won't need help because you can survive on your own. But maybe I can visit you once in a while, or you can visit me once in a while. But some aspects of oneself cannot be tamed, cannot be regulated, cannot be controlled on a symbolic level. In a similar way, I'm recalling that it said that some South Indian goddesses were considered so fierce that it was inconceivable to imagine having any of them be married to a god. I don't want to get into the controversy over which religion was first or which culture was first here in South India, but this is sort of going along with the historical narrative that there were tribal cultures here, there was some sort of Dravidian cultures here, which involved some very fierce local goddesses, and that some of these goddesses were then married to Sanskritic pan-Indian gods. But some South Indian goddesses were considered so fierce that better left alone. Could not, even on a metaphorical or even on a mythological level, it was not imagined to have them marry a god. That's just one example. So my general point is that we either have to apply an inner brake when we come across an aspect of ourselves that is so far out that it's not socially acceptable to behave in such a way. We either have to apply a brake, or we have to say to that part of ourselves, okay, I'm very happy to meet you. Please go live in the jungle. And, I'll visit you, you can visit me, but you can't live in the city because, there'll be too much confusion and upset. Does this begin to answer your question about this idea of a break?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else have any thoughts about this whole area of what to do? See, the sublimate is a very important word in this kind of psychology. That we can sublimate our sexual urges into creativity. And one theory of masculinity is that since we cannot create babies, we cannot create people, at least we can sublimate our creative desires into the creation of buildings, into the creation of culture. That women are built, women can also create culture, but women are built in such a way biologically that they can create humans. We cannot, us men cannot do that, but we can sublimate our creative instincts and desires into the creation of objects. So it's a way of channeling an instinct in a constructive way. But as I say, some instincts are not to be channeled. They just have to be respected and encouraged to stay in the jungle. And that means we should not cut down the jungle. We should leave a jungle. Okay, any other things that anyone wants to say about this? As I say, for me, this piece was about just appreciating the idea that we all have all these different voices within us. The voices can include our memories of people who've been in our lives, our perception of our own personality traits and emotions within us, imaginary figures that we carry with us, anything that all of our baggage, all of our many pieces of baggage, including, which might be good, it's good to have baggage, including the people or animals or things that you might kind of talk with once in a while. Many of us, we like to consult. I like to talk to my mother who died 25 years ago. I often do. I think, what would she think about such and such? So many of us have characters like that who are finally a part of us. I may imagine that my mother is my mother and that my memory of my mother, okay, that's my mother. But no, finally now she is a part of me. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
So we all have different parts of us, all talking to us and telling us what to do and what not to do. And our conscious mind has to sort it all out and decide how to proceed.
Can I say something here?
Yes.
This actually reminds me of some vague old Tamil movies. I don't know if it may be even Hindi. Then there used to be these, the soul has a negative and a positive, and the negative and the positive are actually having a conversation with the what do you call the person without the soul? I don't know. But then they start talking about right and wrong. And I don't know, when you were talking about the forest, it's amazing how people, even so many decades back, they actually thought about what we're talking today and they gave it out to us in the form of a movie. Isn't it? I mean, I was thinking about that.
Oh, and
Yeah. So when you said that we tend to take people to be a part of ourselves, I remembered something which someone said to me one day, that when you really have or you lose people who are very dear to you, like you said that my mother is a part of me now. So there was this person who said that we try to retain the person with us by actually incorporating the traits that we admire in them in us. So that unconsciously sometimes happens within people, where you try to get in a trait which you really admired of a person that you have lost, and you try to make the person live inside you by making that trait yourself. So I was able to relate to that when you said that my mother is in me. Yes.
And regarding the different characters, we've all seen the cartoons with the character has a little angel on this shoulder and a little devil on this shoulder, and they're both telling what to do. So I think that little story has been a popular one. It's an archetypal story. It's an archetypal realization that we have different and sometimes opposing voices within us. Yeah?
Yeah, I just... Sorry, yeah, please. Please, go ahead.
I could say something regarding what Lavanya said. I think it happens also with people we meet and are still alive. For example, I often imagine what my dance teacher would say me. I think I have taken some traits in my teachers and everybody, even if they are not dead. It's the process. I mean, it's normal. It's as you said in the beginning, because we take something when we met somebody, and we have influences, of course. So it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Smita.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was actually thinking about this. This is very intriguing for me. He was talking about this having a lot of faces of your own self, and then letting it out, curbing it, to apply brakes to it. It was very interesting. I was thinking of this movie, Jumanji, the recent one. So these guys, they are actually something in reality, and once they get into the forest, I don't know if you guys have seen it. It wasn't that great, but then I have a huge adventure fan in my house, so I had to go see it. But it was something with what Eric was saying. They can kind of.
She got disconnected. She got disconnected. I'm sure she'll be coming back. She was talking about that movie Jumanji, and somehow characters were in a forest. Well, she'll come back. But, okay, now we only have 12 or so minutes remaining. I would really like to try this thing of going into breakout rooms. And I want to invite you to have the experience of chatting about your own and your partner's metaphors that you're thinking about relating to your own life story, and some interesting characters that you're realizing are inside yourself. So let's see now, without her, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 groups. So shall I just split you up randomly, or do you want to choose who you want to be in a room with? Let me do it. Sid and
randomly.
Randomly. Well, randomly. Sid and Vikas, I'm gonna randomly put you in a room. Maybe Bronwyn and Lavanya, I'll put you in a room, and Christelle and Sumaya, can I put you into a room? Yeah. And in each case, who will speak? Whose situation will be discussed first? Vikas and Sid. Will one of you volunteer to be first? Vikas.
Vikas is volunteering.
Yes, Vikas, you're randomly requested to speak first. Bronwyn and Lavanya, do you have a preference who's going to speak first about whose situation? Let Bronwyn go first, because it's in the middle of the night for her. Smita, you're back. You're back. Yes. Tell us, we're about to go into separate rooms, but before we do, tell us what you were thinking about that movie Jumanji, where they were going into the jungle.
Oh, I'm really sorry for disappearing. Yeah, so they were something else in reality, and then they get into this kind of a game, and they go zoom, and it is extreme. It's just the opposite of what they are, So they are trying to conquer there's this guy who's extremely scared of everything, and in the game Jumanji, he's like the guy with the huge big body. I don't know what's he called. They got a lot of muscles, and he is able to kill everyone. So it's like alter ego kind of thing. So something like what you were talking about earlier.
The different voices within. Well, comic books have these characters. The Incredible Hulk. And so the Incredible Hulk, we can relate to. There's a brute inside of us. Freud would call it the id, that wants what it wants immediately, and has no doubts about feeling justified to just grab it. So that is a part of one, perhaps. Okay, Smita, why don't you and I have the conversation? We'll stay in the main room, and everyone else is going off in their own room. Christelle and Sumaya, which one of you would speak first in your group? Christelle, why don't you volunteer? Because you're.
Can you just please say again?
You and Sumaya are going to go into a private room, and first you'll talk about your life story, and you'll tell her if you have any metaphors in mind that have come out of your life story, any aspect of your life story, and she might give you some feedback or make some suggestions. And then also you can tell what aspects, what voices you're what characters you're thinking about from within inside yourself, and she might also give you some feedback. Take about 5 minutes on that, and then you'll discuss Sumaya's metaphors and characters. Okay, and that will not be recorded.
Anything in my life.
That's right. First looking at metaphors, then looking at characters in your memory and imagination. So I'm going to stop.
How many time?
About 5 minutes and 5 minutes. We can go just a few minutes over. I'm going to stop recording now, so none of this will be recorded. I don't even think the small room activity can be recorded. But anyway, I'm going to stop recording. Smita and I are going to stay in the main room, and I'm going to try to put the three other teams in separate rooms. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so first, stop recording.